Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're still just waiting for the room to fill up a little bit, so I'll do the proper welcome and introduction shortly. But thank you all for joining. In the meantime, could you please type your company, where you're from, who you are, in the chat, just so that we can see who we've already got in the room. I'll also set up a little message to ask you to do that. If we've got people from PE, that's the best thing about webinars is that you don't have to travel to attend the event, which is part of the philosophy of today's interaction. So we'll make a note of that. It's a bit like being in an airport lounge, isn't it? Waiting around for something to happen. I'm sneaking in lots of travel references while we get going. But I can see that the room has filled up nicely, so I think let's kick off with an official start. So I'm Georgina Geddes. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of CFO South Africa. Today we're hosting a webinar on the new blueprint for business travel. It's yet another one of these situations where we're trying to identify how to plan for the unknown, and this is possibly one of the biggest unknowns of this entire lockdown situation. So I'd like to welcome Bonnie Smith from the Flight Centre Management Group, Timothy Kaluba, who's the New Models Lead Operations Manager for Uber Sub-Saharan Africa, and Angelique Montalto, the SAP Concur Regional Sales Director. Together they're able to fill in all the pieces of the puzzle of what the future of business travel is going to look like, and how to plan for it. So how to think about it, how to plan for it, and how to balance budgeting with keeping your people safe. The Flight Centre Group's in a unique position. They've conducted some global research into how businesses have adapted to a changed travel landscape and what plans they're making for the future. So she is going to share that with us as the first part of the presentation, and then we'll get into some discussions with Tim and Angie later. So I'm going to hand over to, wait a sec. Before I hand over to you, Bonnie, I'd just like to run a poll. Which you can please all participate in while Bonnie's chatting. Gives you something to keep you busy, and we'll let you know the results when Bonnie's finished her presentation. Over to you, Bonnie. Are you able to start up your presentation? Okay, great. So the three of us can go off camera so that Bonnie can hold the floor. Shout if you need help, Bonnie.
I will, thank you. Thanks very much, Georgie. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for joining everyone in a different world of doing webinars where it's all over a virtual environment, which has really changed from a year ago, where I actually also spoke at the finance in Indaba. So great to be here. I'm going to talk for the next 20 minutes just around travel and just a little bit about our engagement with our customers. So this is a global engagement with 1,600 of our customers, and just to talk you through some of the stats and what happened, how it happened, and what do we see the future looking like. So just a little bit of the agenda, just a little bit about travel paused, what was the airline and hotel impact, then going into the rebound, which is where we're sitting right now, the return to travel, what does that look like? And then just a little bit around what do we foresee in the future, and what are we starting to talk to our customers about around travel policies of the future, changes to travel, considerations that customers should take on board. As Georgie said, I come from the Flight Centre Travel Group. I am the General Manager of our MNC, which is our travel corporate business, FCM Travel Solutions. And what we specialize in is engaging with customers and taking their full corporate travel program and facilitating that travel program to save companies money and to make sure that they've got experts on board. So that's a little bit about where I come from. Just around travel paused. So like I said, we engaged with 1,600 of our global customers, and just to really talk to them and understand the impact of COVID for them and what does that look like into the future. And then also engaged with our suppliers, being airlines and hotels, talking around what does the future look like for them. So the first thing we went into is travel paused. And as you can imagine, when you sell travel and borders completely close around the world, travel stopped, and it was a massive impact for us. I don't think there's any other word that describes this impact to the travel industry other than it's been decimated. And it really, really has been. And talking to our customers of what does that mean for them, 56% of our corporations actually said that they would review their airline impact. And reasons for that is a number of things. What airlines will be left? We've seen a lot of our airlines go into business rescue and are slowly starting to come out of that. What does their capacity look like? What does their routings look like? And how does that change? And what our corporates are saying to us is, due to that, they will look at, do they fly certain airlines? How will pricing reviews be adjusted? Risk management comes up a lot, and I think that risk management talks hand in hand with making sure that their travelers are safe. And then change and consolidation. So do we go and consolidate the amount of airlines that we use? So quite a lot of impact in that airline space. I was lucky and fortunate enough last week to take my first business trip back down to Cape Town, which was awesome. Cape Town put on great weather for us. So if there's anyone on here from Cape Town, thank you for that. I haven't flown since January this year, so it was really good to get back on an aircraft, go into a hotel again and travel and see customers. And it's interesting because although we've engaged with our customers all the way through this pandemic, to actually sit with customers in a boardroom again face to face, you forget the importance of that. So it was a really good trip. And some of the things that are already in place, yes, you do have to wear a mask the whole time. I was on a 2-hour trip to Cape Town. Yeah, it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but you do get used to it. I think on a 12-hour trip, into Europe, it's just something that we have to live with. Our MD, Andrew, always says to us, the pandemic now is something that we just have to get used to and get used to living with. And that's definitely what we're finding from a travel perspective as well. Other things that airlines are considering is how do we actually feed people on aircrafts down to Cape Town. There was no offer of any sort of beverages or food. Also talking a lot around touchless check-in. The check-in procedure is very easy. You check in online and you've got your forms. You go through security quite easily. There's an option to go through a VIP security, and a lot of temperature checks. So that's all coming into play as we speak through airlines and obviously airports. From a hotel point of view, when we engage with our customers, 74% of our customers said that the business would review their hotel strategy. So you can see quite a lot higher than the airline. And I think sort of customers are feeling quite confident with airlines, and they'll sort of consolidate, but they still need to fly from point to point. But when it comes to hotel, they want to have a far more visual understanding of their hotel programs. 37% of our customers want to know that the hotels that they're staying at are COVID safe, health and hygiene reviews in place, and that they are practicing the rules around COVID. 17% around consolidated suppliers and reduced leakage. And this is a big one for us, especially in the world of budgets. And what we see in the travel program as a TMC, a travel management company, is that if you can reduce leakage, where you're not having travelers go off and pay for their own mounts accommodation outside of the program, you'll actually at the end save more money by consolidating your suppliers. Again, around pricing reviews, as we can understand, and then also a change in suppliers. And that probably talks hand in hand to the health and hygiene review. If you're not following COVID protocols, we're not going to stay at your hotel. And some of the things that our hotels are doing, again, lots of temperature checks, making sure that everyone's fit and healthy, obviously the cleansing of rooms, and then also making sure that they diversify their guest occupancy, causing a downward shift in pricing. So making sure that they can fill their rooms and make sure that they're following rules, but still driving down the price that customers stay there, which is obviously music to our ears. Then just going into the rebound of travel, and this is the phase where we sit right now. As FCM, we look after many customers in all different segments in South Africa and globally. And FCM over the period of lockdown actually didn't close. And that's just because we had customers that are part of essential services, and we had to make sure that we were able to facilitate whatever those travel needs were of those customers. So we were able to adapt quickly and allow all of our people to work from home so that we could fully support our customers. And what we found, and we talk about the 4 phases to travel rebound, and what we found at FCM is that this is very true to our business right now. And what we saw first was local and ground travel. So customers that had to travel would prefer to drive, maybe hire a car for a long time, long-term stays at hotels. And we facilitated this all the way through the COVID pandemic. Then obviously domestic borders opened and domestic airlines started to take to the skies, and we started to see an increase in demand here. Obviously here, there's still limited airlines actually in the sky right now. We know that we've got a few airlines that are still grounded and still going through the business rescue process, so there's not many to choose from. But the other thing that we found here is that the frequency of flights was not as often as we're used to post-COVID. And just talking about it, flying down to Cape Town last week, we saw that. You don't have the endless hour flights that you can choose from to get home. You've got maybe 3 or 4. So you've got to really plan your trip well and know that your aircrafts are also full. So while there's lots of protocols in place, there's great safety hygiene, we felt very comfortable, the flights were full. And then the short haul international and long haul international are slowly what's coming back. What we're finding in our space is that if you have to travel, we always knew that short and long haul would be a longer recovery, people not feeling comfortable, what is it going to look like, and what it has added to an already complex world of travel is more complexity, and more complexity. So what happens when I get to the UK? Do I have to self-quarantine, which no business travel is going to do? What happens when I get back into South Africa? So we actually launched our travel hub, which allows anyone to go on and actually see what the protocols are around each country, and make sure that we are giving our customers the right information. What's very transparent right now is we're seeing a shortened purchase window. So customers are making those decisions very quickly, and then also very flexible fares. And I think what we found in the pre-COVID world is just give me the best rates of the day, and that might come with rules around you can't make changes and you can't get refunds, which has a massive impact when a pandemic hits, and now all of a sudden we've got all these vouchers. So it's really around how do we actually get flexible fares to make sure that if something goes wrong, we can actually change the tickets. And then obviously, as we're doing today, virtual meeting has become just a part of our everyday life. So if you don't have a Zoom, you're probably not working. So we know that that's just an everyday occurrence now. And how, as FCM, as a travel management company, can we support that? I also know, though, that talking to customers last week and being back in a room, that engagement is so important. So that's really, where we are with the 4 phases to travel rebound. From a long haul international, we're already starting to see that those numbers come back into our business, but we know it will be a very long-term approach to that. In terms of who is traveling and what segments are traveling, you can see here our graph. We spoke about the different segments and how FCM actually didn't close at all during the process. And that was driven from our different segmentations. So you can see mining, wholesale, healthcare, as you can understand, gas, water, construction, those segments just never ever closed. So they traveled all the way through, and then you can start seeing who actually have started to travel and who won't. 50% are now traveling, so 50% of our industries have traveled, but they are traveling at a lot less frequency and making some very strategic decisions around their policies, which I'll talk about, making strategic decisions around when they travel, how they travel, and who they travel with. So that's some of the industries that have come back already. And then our forward focus. So what does travel look like into the future? And again, this is from our customers, this is from our suppliers, this is from engaging with new people, new customers that are coming on board. So top travel considerations for post 2020 year is duty of care. So where are my travelers? How are we keeping them safe? And if something goes wrong, how am I going to get them home? Duty of care has always been something that we've looked after in FCM through our secure platform. And how do you pull that report and make sure that we have an eyes view over the globe of exactly who is where and who they're flying with. Second, top of the hit is budgets, and I'll be very honest, that's not new for us. Budgets are always an important part of being a travel company. We know that our awesome CFOs always want to look at where we can cut costs, and travel is always one of those that we can. But I think now more so than ever is budget needs to be looked at. And I think what's really important here is how do you engage with the TMC that takes your budget and your travel budget and really helps drive the same goal as a partnership that you have in place, making sure that people can still connect and travel, be safe, but make sure that we're not over a budget on that. And then travel policy. It's funny because who looks at a travel policy until a pandemic hits? The travel policies in many companies has been there and has been there since day one, and you might make quick changes to it. Who owns the policy? But what we found right now is that's the buzzword is we need to relook at the policy, we need to relaunch the policy, and we need to make sure that the policy talks to safety and health. So those are the top three. A fourth one coming through is approval. This is a global research report. Approval in South Africa has always been there. It's a big part of our process in South Africa, but globally approval on travel is not a focus, but you can see that actually has come up at number 4. And then the fifth is around travel technology. And I think that's really important because how do we make sure that we give our customers a mixture of both? What I found through the COVID period is that majority, if not all of our customers actually turned technology off because they wanted to rely on our travel managers and our experts to make sure that they were getting the right information. But we know that the technology of duty of care, reporting, being in line with budgets is really a big emphasis on travel into the future. So those are our top considerations. Things around the policy, I spoke about policy being really important, and things that are coming up more and more and things that you need to start considering around your own travel policies for the future is around health and hygiene. Obviously, that's number 1 at the moment. Pre-trip approval, like I said, is probably not as big in South Africa. Majority, if not all, companies already have an approval process in place. I think what's exciting about this is because globally now it's been talked about, there'll be some nice new technologies coming out. Business class, is business class essential? You know, when we're looking at budgets and cost, do we always need to travel? Is it critical for business class? Business essential. Can you do a virtual meeting? Do you need to travel? journey changes, what happens around protocols at the airport, airline check-in, how do we talk about, safety of our customers in the touchless check-in, touchless airport environments, COVID conduct, and then preferred and COVID safe suppliers. And I talk about that one a lot, and a lot of our customers, and I touched on it earlier, is around that leakage. One of the biggest things that we know as a TMC is where we can really save a company money is if we bring your full travel program into one space. And the minute that there's leakage, that is where your travel budget starts to get blown out. So those are the things that our customers are talking about, and we are talking about and engaging with our customers on changing around their travel policies. And then from a business point of view, just around the financial reforecast. So we know that the customers that we engaged with, 66% of the organization actually had changes to their structure, and 33% had headcount reduction and office downsizing. I think, again, we've learned to work from home, and do you need the cost of a massive office space, although it's great to be back in the office as I am today. So we know that our corporates, and we're mindful of that, our corporates have also taken a massive hit to their business, and that they will relook at it. And so how do we help them reforecast what travel budgets need to look like? Are airfares going to change? Are nightly rates going to change? What does car hire look like? Will I drive more than I fly? So we're really focusing on helping our customers reimagine and rebuild that budget. We've actually just launched our budget campaign, which you can find or get in touch with me, and we can talk you through around how we're able to do this. You can see from here that a lot of 31% of our customers said that there will absolutely be a change to budgets. Travel costs, everyone's talking about travel costs. Are we going to see, so there's two pieces of this travel cost here. One is what are our customers saying, which is talks to the slide, but two, our customers are asking us, are airlines fares going to go up? Are nightly rates going to go up? I can safely say at the moment we're not seeing that. I think airlines and hotels just want to fill their seats again and get back to the skies and have customers check in. So right now we're not seeing a massive increase in those costs. Will it come into the future? We're not sure. It's going to depend on what does capacity look like, what does the routings look like. From a customer point of view, 31% of our customers say we will definitely decrease travel budgets, and that's really coming from transport, agriculture, admin services, and top 4 real estate. And then 6% increase really driven mainly from utilities and health, a bit of science and government. So you can see it's a major yes. And I'm very mindful as a GM is how do I drive that with my customers across the globe and also locally. And with that comes to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back over to Georgie.
Thanks so much, Bonnie. That was great, and it gave us some excellent insights and certainly stuff to think about. And I think that the crucial thing that is so interesting is saying that that the prices aren't necessarily going to go up because hotels and flights really just want to fill those beds and those seats. Because I think that feels like a huge thing. If you can only run at socially distanced occupancy, how do you cover your costs? But at the same time, you need to make it not prohibitive for people to come back. So that's really interesting. I'm going to end the poll now, and we can see that I asked has your company resumed any kind of business travel at all since lockdown regulations have been lifted? 32% said no, we're all just sitting tight in our homes or at the office for now. That's certainly our experience. But then 60%, so I thought that this was actually quite high, said generally not, but when absolutely necessary, we've started letting people travel. And then only a very narrow 8% said our business depends on our ability to travel, so we're back on the road and so we're back on the road and in the air. Does that tally with any kind of findings that you're seeing so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that talks hand in hand with the statistics we're seeing. You definitely have business critical travel needs, and we saw that with those business essentials that just didn't simply come to a close. And we're seeing a lot of, you say you're surprised 60% are saying yes. That's, people want to fly, people want to travel again. So interestingly for us, it's happened a lot quicker than we expected, which is obviously music to our ears and great. And I think what the airlines and even the airports have done well is given confidence in it. And I think when you do it your first time, last week, I fly monthly, and last week I actually felt a bit nervous. And I felt like, the airport a little bit earlier than what I would normally do for a domestic flight, and a little bit of anxiety. But once we did it, it was actually quite simple and quite easy. So it actually worked out well. So I'm finding that 60% is probably about right. And that's what we are starting to see at FCM, and even at the Flight Centre Travel Group, greater element of it.
Yeah. We've actually had a couple of questions that people ask when they sign up for the webinar, and we'll get to those in the Q&A session, along with anyone else who's asked any questions in the meantime. So we will have more questions just about how it's all coming together. I'm going to start a new poll for you. So the question we're asking is, are you planning to resume business travel in the next 12 months? I'd like to hear from everyone. Buddy, you can pop off camera, and I'll invite Tim back on. So that we can have a chat about Uber. Now, Uber is such a fundamental part of people's travel experience. It's one of those things that, if you think back to time before Uber, you don't know quite how you actually got around in new cities. But obviously has been massively affected by lockdown and COVID-19. So can you tell us, from the perspective of having this unique global network, what changes and challenges you've experienced since lockdown, Tim?
So for a global company that whose core business is a movement of people, the restrictions that happened during the lockdown greatly impacted us. At the peak of the restrictions, we saw about a drop of about 80% of our business globally, and this was quite detrimental and significant for many of our couriers in South Africa, mainly, where restaurants also were closed for a period of time, and for our driver partners who could not carry passengers around and except those that were deemed essential services. So definitely was a real significant impact on our business, but it also forced us to actually start thinking differently of our business, forced us to innovate. Instead of focusing only on moving people, we are looking at moving what matters to people. And during this time, we actually partnered with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to actually help deliver more than 500,000 chronic medications to vulnerable patients during this time. We're also able to partner with SA Harvest and Africa Beacon, a non-profit organization supporting underprivileged communities with delivery of food parcels.
Oh, that's really great to hear, because it's not just finding necessary business, but sort of really participating in the social fabric of this crisis. So that's great to hear. So again, I think the question on everybody's minds is, how has this impacted pricing? We've got finance people in the room who are going to be trying to forecast their corporate travel budgets, and do things stay the same, or are we going to have to be paying more for our Ubers?
We know that the pandemic has had an impact on many people and on many businesses in South Africa and on the continent. In this times, we want to make sure that we are still delivering more affordable options, but with the same standards, while also unlocking opportunities for our driver partners. We always look at our business model. We understand the needs of our riders, and also the expectations from our earners, it be couriers or driver partners. And we also have an eye on the economics in each city, and try to price our product at the best possible point, while offering a unique service to each area. Based on our research and data, we know that pricing has always been a barrier, and more so during these times. And that is why we recently piloted a new product, which is reduced fees in specific areas. The product is called Uber. And in addition to this, just to support our partners, because some of them have been impacted greatly, we are offering financial assistance for up to 14 days to partners that have been diagnosed with COVID-19 or have been asked by a doctor or a public health authority to self-quarantine, just to help with earnings.
And I'm actually interested to know what, I don't know if you have those stats because this is a surprise question, but have you had many, I took 2 Ubers for the first time last week since March, and I felt very comfortable. And I asked both of them if they've had any exposure or any concerns, and both of them said that they hadn't. And obviously that's a very small test case. But have you had lots of those incidents? I mean, are people being traced and letting their Uber driver know that they were infected?
I'm not aware of any at present, so I couldn't answer to that question with accuracy.
Okay, sorry, it just occurred to me right then. But so let's get back to that actual driving experience. So what are the standards that are in place to ensure the safety of both the driver and the passenger?
So what we did is we actually introduced mask verification for both riders and drivers. I'm sure when you use your Uber, you were prompted to just make sure that you actually are wearing a mask. We also are asking that riders sit in the back seat to just respect some kind of social distancing. And we've also reduced the number of riders that can actually go onto any given vehicle. And we also are providing a lot of our driver partners with PPE supplies, including sanitizer in cars.
Okay, great. And are those standards universal throughout the world? So, you know, I have my level of comfort in South Africa, and now having gone in 1 or 2 Ubers since lockdown has eased, I feel that those standards are being adhered to. So could I travel elsewhere in the world and experience the same level of comfort? Is that a global standard?
So our safety requirements are pretty much global standards. The requirements that we've rolled out in South Africa are the same ones that have been rolled out in all our other markets. While we work hard at localizing our products per region, we uphold same standards with regards to safety across the globe. We have created an in-app hub for our partners, drivers, where they can actually have access to the latest government financial resources, like if it's available, and ensuring that they stay informed directly in the driver app with regards to everything relating to the COVID pandemic and safety in general. So yeah, so that's pretty much available globally.
Okay. Fantastic. I think that when we were discussing things up front, you also mentioned something about how you've been providing corporate support, helping people to get to and from work. So how did that setup look or work?
So with the impact on the pandemic and the fact that we were seeing less and less people moving around, and our drivers, a lot of drivers looking for opportunities to get some earnings and having none, we had to start innovating, and we innovated with a number of new products. The obvious one was Uber Direct, with Uber Direct, which was the movement of goods, essential goods from different companies. Partnership with the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation is part of that product, and many other businesses. We enabled them to move their goods, it'd be restaurants, it'd be e-commerce sites, to their customers. That was with Uber Direct. And Uber Connect was a way for us to actually help individuals that were locked in their homes actually be able to send goods across town to their loved ones. It'd be a book, some food, whatever the goods might be. And on the business side, what we launched was Uber by the Hour, our product. We knew that many people might be uncomfortable having to hop into one Uber and then the next Uber, in a very short time. And what we did is to allow people who have like an errand, who needed to use multiple times a vehicle, to actually book a vehicle for an hour. And that was launched in Dar es Salaam, and it was quite an interesting experiment. The product is still live in that market.
Okay, great. Yes, when I booked my Uber last week, I saw that I could courier something for half the price of sending myself. I wondered if I could convince anyone that I was a parcel. Tim, thank you very much for your insights. Great to hear about the interesting things that you're doing. So I'm going to invite you to hop off and Angie to hop on, and we'll fill in the last piece of the puzzle with Angie's input. There you are, Angie. Hi, welcome back. So as an expense management company, you again have this unique insight into what businesses are actually spending their money on. And you mentioned in our prep call that this changing face of business travel will require innovation and greater engagement between CFOs, HR, and travel providers. Could you let us know what this dynamic is actually going to look like?
Sure, thanks, Georgie. Appreciate the time today. And I just say, great presentation, Bonnie. Fantastic insights, and Tim, it's great to be on a call with you again. For the audience, both Flight Centre and Uber are partners of ours within our broader partner network. And I think if we just sort of tie everything together, Georgie, generally in the past, the travel responsibility in organizations lay within the wheelhouse of the HR organization. But what we've seen really accelerate over this lockdown period is because CFOs are taking more of an active role in terms of not only that travel policy or the travel budget, but also for two very clear reasons. The one is, and Bonnie spoke to this earlier, is the duty of care, which is obviously the obligation of the business to keep their employees safe. Similarly, we did a survey in the UK and found that employees are now, they feel that their health and safety is twice as important as actually meeting their business goals, right? So that's a huge shift in terms of road warriors and personas. The second thing is really around, you need to improve that travel policy and the expenses that go with it. I mean, it might have been a temporary sort of situation, but I think what we've all learned over the past 9 months is that we need to be able to be adaptable and more agile in terms of how do we shift our policies, how do we shift our priorities, and I don't think we can ever get away from the fact that we need to, as organizations, be conserving as much cash and ensuring that we have a very liquid position. And I guess that's why we've got this bridging between the CFO and the CHRO leaders within the organization. I think the final point that I just want to say on that is really it has been tough, and it's strange. Bonnie said a lot of their customers pulled away from technology, but most of our customers sort of accelerated the move towards technology. Because if I just look at our organization as an example, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to ensure that your new approval processes or your new travel policies are accessible to all your employees, and that you. There's a bee flying around me. Sorry about that. So of course, your business to have unnecessary delays and inefficiencies built into that. You want automated, streamlined processes. You want to keep your people productive, and you want to be able to pivot and respond quickly to the volatility. So that's kind of my perspective in terms of how we collaborate between, let's call it the office of the CFO, the CHRO, and maybe from an operations perspective.
Okay, great, fantastic. And then are you yet able to say that you can observe any trends in the kinds of things that companies are paying for?
Absolutely. So again, the same study that we did said 72% of businesses have seen a change in the expense types that they're pushing through their financial systems, but only 24% have actually changed their policies to support those expense types. I mean, on a previous call that Tim and I had been on, he was talking about how Uber had very quickly implemented a policy where they would issue their people working from home with a monthly stipend to support things which are, additional data. Maybe I need paper for my printer, those kinds of things. the big thing that we've seen is, well, obviously there was a complete halt to travel, and there were far less expenses coming through for entertainment or meals or things like that. But there was a massive surge in actually home office furniture. So, well, I've never had a home office, so I need a chair, and that chair needs to be ergonomically sound because I'm going to be sitting it for 10 hours on endless Microsoft Teams meetings. The biggest challenge that we saw coming out of that, and I can tell you now, is how do you manage that change in your policy? So if I just go back to the original point that I made, is if you've got one technology platform, you can change something centrally and push it out globally. It doesn't matter whether your people are, back at the office, whether they're on the road, or whether they're working remotely from home. I've heard horror stories over the last couple of weeks from clients who have had, a chiropractic, ergonomically approved office chair for 17,000 Rand pushed through without anybody, even blinking an eye, because there wasn't anything in place. There was no catchment area for that. So again, this is what we do as Conquer. We provide that technology platform so you can quickly make those changes to your policy. You can introduce or take away expense types, and you can roll it out globally, let's say, with the flick of a switch.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Andy, and for the insights into how expenses are evolving. Do you think, excuse me, do you think that with the new expenses and the loss of travel expenses, we're kind of in a zero-sum game, or do you think people are having to spend more because people are in lockdown, or do you think that for now it's less?
I think it's, for now, less. It's definitely less. I can't share the stats with you publicly, but certainly, we run 55% of the globe's travel and expense policies on our tech platform. So, we saw just about a zeroing out of travel going through our platform, and a significant drop in the number of expenses that were being put through. What we have found, though, is that the reason why people are looking at changing their policies or changing the way that they move from a, let's say, manual or semi-automated process to a fully digital technology platform is predominantly around cost control and compliance. Okay, so when you are pulling in an Excel spreadsheet or sending an email and people are approving, there's no catchment. There is no catchment in terms of you're within the policy right now. Okay. Again, horror stories that I hear from clients that people just would submit the same expense every week and, probably dial in from their satellite phone off their yacht that they're funded with, just, sending through manual expense claims as a secondary source of income. So, two key areas in terms of why people are moving towards new policies, moving towards fully automated processes, is around the trust and compliance element.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's all very fascinating. I'm going to end the poll now, and then we can look at those stats. So I asked if companies are planning to resume business travel in the next 12 months. 7% said no. We really have found that it's possible to replace actual travel with technological interaction. And I find this interestingly low, because we really are hearing about this new world of work, and technology is replacing everything we used to do, and we can interact online, and you can conduct interviews online and site visits with a drone, and all these things. And it turns out from this poll that just really isn't the case. That so it was 7% who say that no, they're just hunkering down for the next year. 80% said we are definitely going to have to attend to some matters in person. So yes, but only a little. And then we have 12% that said absolutely, we've held on for as long as we can, but we have to get back to business as usual. So there, other than those essential services, which I imagine were always operating during lockdown, there really is we're definitely going to see a smaller, the largest percentage doing essential travel, and then a smaller majority still saying that that it has to get back to business as usual, and travel has to be how it was before. So those are interesting stats. Do you have any comments on that, Angie? Is that anything that you've kind of seen reflected, a rising uptake now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sort of talks to Bonnie's last slide as well. All those 4 stages of travel. We've definitely seen, even within our own organization, people are in their cars traveling more so than actually getting on a plane. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen a huge uptake in terms of those domestic flights. And they are even considering regional flights now as well in terms of getting back on the road. I think the biggest inhibitor of that is not only off the back of an organizational change, but rather a personal change. I think companies are very much more wary of the fact that they're not in a position to force employees to get back on the road or get back on a plane. Up to the employees, it won't stop them, but it really is off the back of the employees' level of comfort, safety. Getting in a plane, to Bonnie's point, for 2 hours to Cape Town, sitting directly next to somebody. So those figures look pretty much on par with what we've seen in our industry.
Okay, great. So I'm not the only person asking questions around here. We do have a couple of audience questions to get to. Bonnie and Tim, can I ask you to come back on the air? We actually had some great advanced questions as well. So from Njabulo Nwayo from Standard Bank, they asked, what travel approval protocols and frameworks should businesses be adopting to resume safe business travel? Now, you have touched on that to a certain extent in terms of where the collaboration lies, Angie, but I mean, are there specific policies that you're seeing being implemented? I suppose Angie and Bonnie can touch on this.
So, I mean, I'll give it to Bonnie first because she will talk to you actual travel policies. And we really partner with Flight Centre as a piece of technology that underpins how we enact those travel policies.
Yeah, so I think great question. And I think, in South Africa, we've always adopted an approval process. So when I talk to my colleagues in other parts of the world, it was always like, why do you need approval? Surely you've got the policy in place and people just follow it. Who needs to approve the process? And that's come up more and more. I think what we're finding now is you need a technology piece, absolutely, that makes it seamless and touchless. And you go from the OBT, your line manager approves it and it gets issued. I think what's coming up a little bit more is, do you need 2 or 3 levels of that approval, from line manager to other overall head of department or whatever it is. So I think all in all, customers are looking at different ways of doing this. The technology has always been there. We offer it. And it's something that South Africa companies have adapted very well to. So I think from our research, this is probably coming across more from global companies that don't really have an approval process in place. But from South African point of view, something we've always done.
Okay, great. Angie, I don't know if you have anything in particular to add to that, or are you happy with Bonnie's?
I think just the final thing, so you made a good point, Bonnie, in terms of moving to touchless approvals, right? And that's the benefit of having intelligent technology underpinning your policy. So if you back that policy into your project upfront, for example, you are not able as an employee to book anything outside of what you're entitled to. So it's that first sort of 1 and 2 level of policy approval that kicks in automatically. And I think both from a Flight Centre and a Concur perspective, we've invested heavily in artificial intelligence, machine learning. We've taken a lot of that decision making a step change away from managers or humans, if you like, and creating a sort of automated policy review to ensure that we're adhering 100% to what we put up towards our employees.
Okay, great. Angie, you're fading a little bit in and out with the mic. I don't know if you sit a little bit closer to it, that maybe it'll just pick you up more consistently. Sorry about that. Thank you. But thank you for your answer. Gerard asked in the chat, Gerard van der Merwe, are businesses also considering B&B and self-catering apart from hotels as accommodation options? Bonnie, I don't know if that's within your remit and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, first of all, and absolutely they are. B&B's become a really important element. So already in South Africa, B&B is a big part of our travel program. And I suppose the question more fits into how do we as a TMC bring that B&B content into the technology? because normally you find with B&B, you've got to go offline to book it. It's not sitting within the actual technology of the booking tool. So we've actually engaged with a project with Concur and Ange and her team, where we're actually starting to build all of our B&B content into the OBT, which again allows it to be completely touchless. It's live inventory, and you'll have more content delivered to you, whether it be a hotel or a bed and breakfast. So that's definitely an important aspect. And that, you know, I wouldn't say that important aspect of content delivery was based on COVID. I think that's been something that corporates have been talking about for a long time. And our B&B strategy is actually just been sped up, if nothing else.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, sorry, I'm just looking at the next question. Val Littlewood asked, how has the COVID testing for frequent cross-border travellers been affected? So is that happening, and how does it happen, and where does it happen? Is there a standard global policy, or do you have to pay attention to kind of each link in your travel plan?
Yeah, unfortunately it is a little bit about paying attention to each link in your travel plan. So what we've done is at Flight Centre Travel Group is we've engaged with the travel doctor, because we know that to leave and enter South Africa you need your test 72 hours before. We can allow you access to the travel doctor, and then the travel doctor will give you all the details around how to do it, facilitate the payment on a portal, and then be able to give you your test. You do, though, need to engage at each trip. So, and I suppose that I talk about the complexity. I mean, travel has always been a bit of a complex beast when it comes to managing it, and this has just added more. So, you know, for South Africa, it's a test 72 hours before, but what does it mean when you enter the UK or Europe or Asia or something like that? And so that's part of what we do is make sure that you've got that information. But the best place to really look is you know, engage with your TMC, make sure you know each entry point and what you will need, and they'll be able to guide you through that whole process.
Okay, great. Then Angie, I have another one for you from Simone Tate from JASCO, who asked about remuneration or reimbursement for business travel. She says, i.e. fixed or claimed as travelled, what would be considered best logical in the commencement of travel after COVID-19? Does that question make sense?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So if I understand the question correctly, is are you claiming your actuals for reimbursement, or are you getting almost an allowance, a travel allowance per day? Certainly our experience is claiming on documentation like your receipt or a invoice when you've taken an Uber. Transaction automatically feeds into our technology because we have a direct connect with Uber, for example. And globally, the statistics show us that there's about a 37% cost-saving element of claiming actual, as opposed to giving people a daily, you know, you get 250 Rand a day or 250 Rand a bill, and you don't need to bring us the receipt. What we find, especially with frequenters, is when you're offering a per diem or a travel allowance, and that's sometimes opportunity for abuse. People take their 250 Rand, apply in a code, you know, use the rest to pay school fees or the house mortgage. There's no supporting documentation required. So that's absolutely a great question.
Okay, thanks, Angie. We had a question from Suzanne Kruger asking exactly what is the acceptable social distancing going to be on flights? And Bonnie, I think this is for you, and it's quite interesting because I haven't flown yet, but I have a couple of friends who've flown down to Cape Town, and they said they were 100%, that flight was full. There's no social distancing. So are there any regulations around that, and how has comfort been made with the fact that you're sitting in really little airline seats very close to other people, and then sometimes having something to eat?
Yeah, so look, same. I've done one flight and it was jam-packed. My partner also travels for business, and he's been traveling all the way through, and the flights are jam-packed. So it's an interesting one. So the answer is no. The airlines have being given the ability to fill their seats. And I suppose where they're taking protocols in place is temperature checks before and after, no removal of masks, and right now actually no, you're not actually allowed to eat or drink on the aircraft. What that means when you do a 12-hour flight, we get to unpack and probably just need to do some engagement with customers that have done those flights already, but we know that you will have to wear a mask 100% of the time, and all those protocols are being made pre-boarding, so making sure your tests are negative for international travel, and obviously the temperature checks.
Okay, great. And then we have one from Michael Hove, which I thought was jolly interesting, but I'm not 100% sure if between us we'll know how to answer it. But whether business insurance will cover the risk of COVID-19 and would consider flying their staff separately. So that I guess he's saying so that your executives don't all get COVID-19 from the same infected person on one flight. So does anyone know about what insurance is or isn't covering at this stage?
I should know that. And for the life of blank. Interesting though in the last part is that a lot of our policies of our corporate customers don't allow the executive team to fly in one aircraft anyway. So if your whole exco has to get down to a specific area, and we'll just argument say Cape Town, they actually expect your exco depending on the travel policy. We don't have that travel policy in Flight Centre itself. In fact, our whole expat team flew last week. So if someone had got it, we all would have got it, absolutely. In terms of the insurance, can I come back to you? I just want to engage with our product leader. Like I said, I should know that. It was actually asked in one of our webinars where the answer was given, and I actually can't remember the answer.
It's not a problem at all, and that actually ties in very nicely to how we like to approach this, is that there's not always time to get through everybody's questions. So what will happen is that once we close the webinar, which is very short moments away, we will forward your questions on to the panel, and we'll facilitate a response for you on email. So if you didn't get your question answered in the chat today, we will move on. So with that, I'd actually like to say thank you very, very much to Bonnie, Tim, Andy. I think it's been absolutely fascinating. I mean, I was gripped from start to finish. I think it's one of the areas we know is hardest hit, and it's one of the areas I think that we're all a little bit anxious about. So it's interesting to hear about the different policies and structures supporting it, and really my big learning from today is the extent to which travel is being resumed. It really is happening, so we really do need all those other questions answered in terms of how we pay for it, how we claim for it, and how we keep our people safe. So thank you very, very much for your time today and for your support, Andy. I just want to tell you about a couple of other events we have coming up. Let's see if my slide is going to work nicely. Okay, this was what we had. This is what we had today. Next week we have Nedbank providing a webinar on smart finance for import and export. So that's interesting for people working in that area. And then coming up we have a webinar on how Investec CFO adapts and evolves to stay relevant in finance, and that's supported by Oracle. So thank you very much everyone for joining. We hope to see you at the next one. You can, to sign up for these and future events, you can visit cfo.co.za/events and subscribe to our newsletter because we keep you abreast of all future webinars coming up. Thanks once again, Andy, Tim, Bonnie. It's really great to be here today. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.